Hi everybody, episode 2 of Cooking with Momo Mama. Hopefully I don't have any influences that happened like last time. This week I am making Sauerbraten of algae. Algae is my dad's old best friend, my Uncle Al Garish. He's very German. And he came up with his very own Sauerbraten recipe, which I've done multiple times, and I've actually had great success each time. But the first part of making the Sauerbraten is to actually kosher the meat, to salt it and let all the moistures and things come out of the meat. So theoretically, you'd be using a like 4-pound pot roast. And you'd be letting it marinate for 3 to 4 days before you actually cook it for dinner. I don't. I actually discovered that if I use a marinating steak, it absorbs just as much as like a 4-day marinated pot roast, but it's less prep time. I don't have to keep going out in the garage and flipping it every few minutes. And it's just easier to work with 2-pound steaks than it is a giant 4-pound pot roast. So that's what I'm going to be doing tonight. So I'm just grabbing my biggest mixing bowl, make sure it's not dusty or anything. And the first step of the recipe is to get the meat, put it in there, cover it completely with cold water, and that's going to be like the first rinsing of the meat, and it's going to sit in there for about a half hour. Here's big old steak numero uno. Here's another one. And here's steak number 2. Sorry, I have a bit of a issue with my refrigerator. It's way too full, and 90% of it I can't eat right now because it's the last Friday in Lent. Blessed Good Friday, if you celebrate with me. But Fridays during Lent, we don't eat meat. Doesn't mean I'm not going to prep meat, but we don't eat it. Fish doesn't count. That's mostly because that was Rome's biggest export, and the Vatican would have caught a lot of shit if they didn't exclude fish. So, I'm going to take my meat, stick it in my bowl, get rid of the packaging. Oh my goodness, and this one's almost 3 pounds, so I have 5 pounds of meat here. It will marinate just fine. Because look, this one has a lot of fat. It's going to get braised off later. And I'm going to rinse it and then let it soak for 30 minutes. Big old flour. Always use antibacterial hand soap when you're done handling raw meat. Now fill it up with cold water. That's the thing, cold water. And essentially you let this soak for 30 minutes. If you want to come take a look. You can actually already see the... Ooh, hello. Don't focus. The blood starting to just like get sucked right out of the meat during that rinse. So we're going to let this sit for 30 minutes and then come back and salt it. Okay, time for part 2 of prepping the meat, which is we let this sit for a half hour. A lot of the blood has been rinsed out of it essentially, and now what we're going to do, we're going to rinse the meat off really quick, cold water again, and we're going to smother it in kosher salt. So one hand is going to be handling and rubbing the meat, the other hand is going to be throwing the salt on there so I don't cross-contaminate the salt. Of course, kosher salt is really good for essentially pickling, pulling all the moisture and water out of the meat. I'm going to rinse the meat, pop it on my cutting board here, and salt it up. And the reason why I have this cutting board sitting in this pan this way is so whatever drippings come off the meat, it's going to run straight down and catch in the pan. So you don't have wet meat everywhere. So let's rinse this off. I'm not going to wash it yet. I will wash it in a moment when I'm done salting that, but now So essentially this meat is hopefully going to turn this brown color. We're going to suck even more of the blood and stuff out of it. So here we go. We're going to salt it. And you can be very liberal with this. With the salt. So we got to let this sit and cure for about an hour. You can actually already see. Let's see if we can get a look at it. All the water and blood is already starting to get pulled out of it. So we really salted this bad boy. So all the water is going to drip down best that it can, considering I had to get 2 meats. Because my family loves to eat. Although, in addition to liking to eat, we also, there's a lot of us. So I'm going to take care of my metal bowl, because I'm going to use that. Make sure I have my soup pan ready to make the marinade, and I'll see you guys in about an hour. Okay, hi. So the meat's been sitting salted for an hour. Now I'm going to use cold water, rinse off all the salt. I'm going to put it back into my nice clean bowl, and then I'll show you how to get the marinade going. Cold water. The only other downside to using these marinade meats is this oftentimes happens that the 2 pieces will fall apart on each other. So these have been rinsed off. I'm going to wash this down later, but I'll show you how to do the marinade after I wash my hands again. So now we're going to get to work on making the marinade. It says use a medium saucepan. I always pick a bigger one. Meat has been rinsed. It's sitting in my bowl. It's going to wait for the marinade. I'll pull up my recipe. By the way, I'm doing this at midnight, which is why I look so sick and tired. Okay. So I like usually using 2 different measuring cups, one for dry ingredients, one for wet ingredients. So that way I don't have to keep, rinsing stuff and drying it off and rinsing and drying it off. First thing is 1 pint of apple cider vinegar. And the one bonus to having Wegmans is I really can't smell anymore because, my nose has got destroyed. So that really doesn't affect me. Like, I can taste it in the back of my mouth. I can't really smell the vinegar, the acidic vinegar. Okay. So, 1 pint of apple cider vinegar. 1 pint of red wine vinegar. Price chopper. Blah, blah, blah. 1 whole bottle. Gone. That goes in my recycling. This is why I use a big saucepan, because it's already like half full. Okay. 2 cups of water, so 1 pint of water. Dilute it a bit. I would assume I didn't invent this recipe. I just do it. 1 cup of dry red wine. Goya. It's always good for this. Dry red wine. Or cooking wine. It's the driest stuff you can get. Actually, no, that's not true. I had a red wine one time. It was gifted to me by one of my dance students. And I'm sure it would have been good for a very specific dish. But let me tell you, it was drier than the Sahara Desert. So anyways, 1 cup of dry red cooking wine. You could tell my Uncle Al loved very savory flavored things. Okay. tablespoon of kosher salt. These measuring spoons are actually my daddy's. Tablespoon of kosher. One more. Tablespoon. Quarter cup of sugar. This is why I use 2 measuring cups. A quarter cup of sugar. A smidge more. And this is the interesting thing about this meal is that a lot of it is very sour because of the vinegar, but it's counteracted a lot by a lot of sweets. Usually you have Sauerbraten with sweet red cabbage. It's a sauteed cabbage that's also cooked with apples and molasses, so that counteracts a lot of the bitterness. Not bitter, sourness. But let me double check. Quarter cup of sugar. Whee! Now this is when we get into minute details. 8 whole cloves. 8 of these. Now remember, this is a marinade. You're not actually going to end up like eating this. 1, 2. You gotta make sure it still has a little bulb on the end. 3, 4, 5. Did I make them? 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 whole cloves. Of course, as I use things, I just move them to this side because the cabinets where they go away are on this side. Just makes it easier. Alright, 8 whole cloves, 4 bay leaves. Bay leaves are another one of those things where it's like they taste so good when you add them into a recipe. But you definitely don't want to eat these. They're so tough. Okay, there's a lot of broken ones. Ah, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 big ones. 1 teaspoon of whole black peppercorns. So here are my peppercorns. 1 teaspoon. And I love to use spoon sides because you get a spoonful, you just run it across the edge there, and it'll brush off the excess. See? 1 teaspoon, right? 1 teaspoon of whole black peppercorns. Peppercorns, a tablespoon of lemon juice. Lemon juice, lemon juice. Tablespoon of lemon juice. I do cheat and use lemon juice from a bottle. I don't feel like squeezing lemons. When you're a tired mommy, you just don't want to bother after a certain point. It's like a little too much extra work. There we go. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. 4 whole allspice. We're actually almost out of these buggers. We need to get more allspice. They're very potent, so it really doesn't take a lot. I'm going to grab my 4 biggest ones. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. For allspice. Now you're supposed to have 6 juniper berries. You can actually substitute juniper berries for gin. Like I think it's for every 3 juniper berries you use 1 teaspoon of gin. And that's like the one ingredient I don't have. It's the one I'm going to forgo this time. I don't think it's going to make much of a flavor difference because there's so many strong flavors in here, but we'll see. I've had a lot of success with this recipe, so I'm nervous about changing one little thing. 2 teaspoons of whole caraway seeds. So here's my caraway seed. Need 2 teaspoons of that. Let me use this to catch anything, because the container's not big enough for me to put my spoon in. I don't like it when they do that. Okay, that's 1. Let me just make sure it's 2. I always double check. Yep, 2 teaspoons. Two teaspoons of caraway, 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, ground ginger. And this is a shaker. It doesn't have a spoon lid, so you gotta pop that off. Ground ginger is a little trickier because it does get clumpy if you haven't used it in a while. Okay. 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Such a big container of cinnamon, I don't want to spill. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. 1/2 teaspoon of fine ground black pepper. Oh, wrong side, spoon side. Two medium yellow onions peeled and sliced. 1 medium carrot and 1 stalk of celery. Oh, did you know? I live in New York State. I live in a county called Orange County. A lot of people confuse it with California. Orange County, California. One of Orange County's biggest crop, I think it still is, but it's actually onions. Because they have the black dirt fields here. I've never been to them. I think I've seen them one time in passing. But get those all off to the side. I'm slicing my onion. Try not to cry. Because it doesn't matter whether I can smell or not. These go straight into the eyes. See, I told you it didn't matter whether you could smell or not. Those fumes still get to your eyes. Okay, so after our 2 medium onions, hold on, I lost my recipe. We need 1 medium carrot, 1 stalk of celery with the leaves. So let me grab those. So the celery I have doesn't have a lot of leaves on it. It's actually kind of disappointing. But I'm going to slice it into small chunks. Because like I said, this is really just to pull the flavor of your celery out of it. It's not really to eat. All these vegetables are going to get discarded once it's done marinating with the meat. Later on, you'll need to finely chop your onions and stuff, but not now. Just for the marinade. More celery. 1 medium carrot. I love using baby carrots. For some reason, they always end up being sweeter. So I calculate about how many baby carrots would be an actual carrot. Usually it's about 9. So all my baby carrots are in. Move my measuring cup out of the way. And just to double check my recipe before we move on, combine all this in a saucepan and bring to a heat, boiling over high heat. So essentially you're going to let this boil, stir it up, so that way all the ingredients actually get into the liquid. because right now it's just all floating on top. And then once it's done boiling, you gotta let it cool down, because if you dump a hot marinade on top of meat, you're gonna be like pre-cooking your meat, and you don't want that. When that's finally cool, we're going to salt and pepper our meat, pour it in the cooled marinade, cover it over the meat completely, and then stick it in the refrigerator until Sunday morning. And that's just step one. Happy Easter, Easter Sunday. I'm going to finish making my Sauerbraten now. So, this has been sitting in the refrigerator since Friday night. It's been there all day Saturday. I'm going to flip it over halfway through the day. Make sure it really soaked up all the marinade. And now, we're going to start braising our meat. So this is what we're going to do. First, I'm going to take the meat and marinade, pat it dry with some paper towels, so we're not getting too much of the cold liquid into our Dutch oven. Look at this color. That's a weird color of meat. Right, Grammy? Look at this color.
Beautiful. Yep.
And we're going to pat it dry. And my difficulty with working with cold meat is that the cold actually hurts very bad. You see my hands shaking. And it's because I have fibromyalgia, so all the cold, it's like taking a dagger and shoving it through my elbow, because the nerves, it goes all the way down, but the pain really starts up here. Like, I feel the pain in my fingertips, and then it's like a knife going into my elbow. It's awful. Now, we also have to strain all these vegetables out of the marinade. We're going to keep the marinade juice, but we're not going to keep the vegetables. They're yucky now. They've been sitting in bloody meat for 2 days. La, 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 la. Now we're going to braise the meat.
I have to get the sodas to put in the refrigerator.
It's supposed to be 3 tablespoons of peanut oil. I stopped measuring. I am going to use that piece, I'm just not going to use it yet. Alright, are we ready? Nice hot oil. Nice big chunk of beef. Here we go. So we're going to brown the meat on all edges, all sides. So while this is browning, I'm going to separate that other piece from the meat. Oh, it's right here. That way I have the 2 smaller pieces and I don't have to worry about them suddenly falling off in the middle of all this. But I do want to use these pieces because A, waste not, want not, and B, these 2 little pieces have all the gorgeous fat that we want. I don't know if you see that. And A, that fat helps the meat cook, and B, that's where all the flavor is. We want that. My sister doesn't like to eat the fat. I don't know why. Fat is always the best part. Feeling these pieces are going to fall apart very quickly while in the oven, but they also have the most amount of fat all around them, so they're putting them in and allowing them to fall apart is going to create a lot of flavor in the gravy. Alright, so these babies look like it's about as much fat I'm going to get out of them. Could get more, but I don't, like I said, I don't want to overcook this. And what my mom was saying is I should put the biggest chunk on the bottom of the Dutch oven when it's time to put it in the oven. Read ahead a little bit in my recipe to find out what the oven should be preheated to. By the way, I'm Mexican. Checking my oven the standard procedure. My poor best friend, her parents never kept things in the oven, so the one time I told her to turn the oven on, she turned it on but didn't check the oven, and there were potato chips in there. This is at my sister's house, and the house almost burned down. It was very funny. Not now, but it was funny. Well, I cut these off because these were going to fall off. I'd rather just cut them off now. Okay, so next in this recipe is to saute in my little pile of fat here 2 medium onions, peeled and finely chopped, 1 stalk of celery, 1 medium carrot. So I did all that before I started filming, so now I just put this all right in. And once these are sauteed for a bit, they're going to stay in there. I'm going to use the same fork I've been using on the meat, just saute them around. I want them all coated in the fat of the meat. That's still my Dutch oven. Let's see, Dutch oven, oven itself should be at 325. Preheat that. Alright, so meat is about ready to fall apart. I don't want it to fall apart yet though.
I hope the chicken is good.
What? Difficulty about cooking a big dinner is you have multiple people in the kitchen.
Why do you think I cook by myself? Okay.
I know why you cook by yourself. Alright, recipe. Gotta bring it back. Alright.
1/4 pound.
Remove the meat from the Dutch oven and keep it warm. I'm going to get my pan back. I'm going to put it behind my Dutch oven so that way I'm not dripping every which way. Now, I'm going to be careful taking this out because I don't want it to fall apart on me. Strain the liquid from the Dutch oven into another saucepan. And put the liquid only back in the Dutch oven.
Okay, what did I do on my
simmer.
wood spoon? Yes.
Okay, so anyways, I strained out this liquid.
A spoon of this?
Liquid's got to go back in the Dutch oven.
You think it will be enough?
And we're going to keep this liquid warm. So we're going to let it simmer in the back of the stove out of the way. On very, very low heat because we just want to keep it nice and warm. The next part is going to be an additive to actually create the sauce of the meat. This is tricky because it can burn very easily.
What?
This next bit.
Better what?
5 tablespoons of butter, 5 tablespoons of flour, and 1½ cups of sugar. I like using silicone spatula. Okay, nice smooth butter mixture, still very, very low heat. 5 tablespoons of flour. There you go, nice and smooth. And now I'm going to add my sugar. I'm only going to do 1 cup of sugar. An extra half, I think, will be too much.
Don't make it too sweet. Too much sugar around here.
And you're supposed to blend and let it turn brown. You're kind of caramelizing it. And the dangerous part here is, theoretically, this is actually going to get hotter than that, so it can splatter. Turn this off. I'm going to add it to that. Let me take the lid off of that. Nice and hot. Now this is going to be hotter than that. It might splatter. It's also sugar, so I got to be very careful. Yeah, see, there it goes. Start sizzling. Be very careful in this part. You hear it? Okay. Add to simmering meat liquid. Return meat to the Dutch oven. Cover and continue cooking in the oven for 45 minutes. I'm going to do it for 30 minutes. That should be enough. Because this meat's already cooked. Alright.
Oh,
Alright, it's supposed to be 45 minutes. I'm only going to do 30 minutes. Oh, this is going to be fun. I
see this the way you want
for everything else. Oh, that looks so good.
So good, maybe nothing else.
Probably. Oh, crap, where are those towels?
I wash it.
Thank you.
God, you.
Oh my god, mine's falling apart.
Well, I told you not to leave it too long. Okay, no.
Well, at least I know it's cooked really well.
I eat your
beautiful. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So now to make the gravy, you take the same exact sauce. You take some ginger snap cookies. You gotta throw the cookie in a bag.
Don't put too many. I don't like
I'm only
them.
putting a couple
I
in.
don't like them.
It only thickens up the thingy.
No matter how would you feel, I don't
Take
like them.
cookies. That's all it's for. I'm breaking the old-fashioned way. The ginger snap, so you definitely need something heavy to break them down.
Don't make it too muddy.
I'm not gonna make it too muddy. Christ.
Honey, that happened.
Oh, that gravy. That's so good. So check this out and come closer. Sauerbraten. All done.
You have to slice it.
I don't think I need to. I will slice it.
Why are you such a...
Okay, go ahead, Grandma. It should just fall right apart. Is it good?
Oh, I like the fatty thing.
Oh, that's why I kept the fat. You were like, why don't you throw it out? No.
Who said that?
You did. To get rid of the fat. And I said, no, I want the
leave
fat.
it in the sauce, I said. They didn't throw it out.
I did leave it in the sauce, and then I took it back out of the sauce. So we can
It's a
eat the
little dry,
fat.
though. It's a little dry.
Well, that's what the gravy is for.